Good morning, everyone. Today I'm here with Sam and Harry. We're going to be showing you guys how to do a real estate contract and what documents you're going to need in your file. So we're going to start one by one. Right now, as you can see, I have a split screen open with the property that we're going to be making an offer on, and we also have the documentation that we're going to need for the file. So let's start with the first document we see here. This is the buyer's disclosure. This document here, what it explains is basically just some stuff covering the process that could arise in any transaction. So first of all, if your client wishes not to use an attorney, a lot of times there is no disclosure out there to protect us. So here I've created a section where they have to initial next to their decision whether they're going to use an attorney or not use an attorney. Last thing we want is the buyer coming back saying that we told them not to use an attorney. This was their own decision. Also, we have to let them know that it's illegal to live, sleep, or rent basements or attics. So this is disclosed to them here. Also, that a home inspection is recommended by us, but it's not mandatory to do. And if they will not do a home inspection, they also have to initial next to their decision. Then they also have to remember that all homes are sold in as-is condition, but the buyer and the seller can negotiate repairs unless specifically outlined in the sales terms. So they have to understand this, because a lot of times clients come back saying, oh, but why don't they want to fix anything? I didn't know it was as-is. If you read the contract properly, it always states that the home is sold as-is, but both buyer and seller have the option to either cancel it in the event that there's too many repairs that need to be done. Also, that the buyer acknowledges that backing out of a valid contract with no tangible reason can result in the buyer being sued for liquidated damages. So that'll keep your clients in the game longer if they know this, and this is explained to them in the beginning. Okay. Also, the deposits are required on most transactions, and by signing the disclosure, you are aware that it states that when an offer is made, the deposit is also due. Okay, so this is really important stuff for you guys to explain to your clients. So we're going to be using this document. So I'm going to go ahead and download that. This is the CIS, which you need to use on every single transaction, no matter what. This is actually supposed to be in your file before you even start the contract. If you meet a person on day one, you're supposed to explain to them that you're representing them in a certain capacity. If you represent them as a buyer, you check off the appropriate box, and you will be representing them from that day on. So make sure that this is in your contract, and if it's not part of your file, make sure that it is in your file when you prepare the offer. Okay, then we have the most important document, which is the offer, right? And it's only an offer; it's not a contract. So don't present it as a contract. It only becomes a contract once an attorney reviews it and they've made the appropriate changes, so you can go forward with the transaction. If there are no attorneys involved in the transaction, then the moment the seller signs off on the offer, then it does become a contract. So I'm not going to read page by page what a contract says, guys, because this is your job to do. You're going to have to really study this and know it, because if you're going to be in front of a client and you want them to sign and you don't know how to explain it, then I can't help you. So I'm not here to explain to you what a contract says. I'm just going to help you guys fill it out, and then you guys can read throughout the fine print so you can better explain it to your clientele. Now, they've recently amended these contracts where now they're 14 pages long. Before they used to be 10 pages. So if you haven't read the new contracts, you should definitely sit down and go over the new stuff that it entails. Alright, then what we have next is, okay, this is something that's foreign to a lot of people. You could have been doing real estate for a few years and you might have never heard this term before, and that's the exclusive buyer's agency agreement. What this document states is that the buyer is going to be working exclusively with just you for a certain amount of time and for a certain amount of compensation. While we're on the topic of compensation, I'm going to explain to you what that means. So if you're working with a buyer, day one you meet with them in your office and you say, hey, listen, I'm going to show you homes and we're going to find you something. But in the event that I find you a home that's not on the market and the seller is unwilling to pay my commission, you understand that you would have to pay my commission. Or if we find a house on an open house and the seller is unwilling to pay the commission, you're going to have to pay for my commission. If they're really looking forward to working with you because you have a lot to offer, they're going to be okay with this, because the majority of the time, 99% of the time, the seller is going to be paying a commission, right? And if you guys have any questions on how you can always make it appear as if the seller is paying the commission, I can help you with that, because in essence, commission always does come out of the seller's proceeds. So if you read into this paragraph here, it's going to explain to you that in the event that the seller is paying a commission, that it's going to be credited to the amount that you agreed to in the beginning. So if that amount was 3% and the seller is paying 2.5%, then that means 2.5% is going to be credited towards their 3% obligation. They would only be on the hook for 0.5%. And if you find it in your heart to forgive them for the other 0.5%, then you guys know that at least you'll be collecting 2.5%. I'll leave this totally up to you guys to understand how to work it. But this document is really important on both sides, for the buyer and for the buyer's agent. It's going to outline to the buyer that you, as a real estate agent, you have fiduciary duties to them, and you will read these out loud to them so they understand that by signing this document, you're going to be using diligence, you're going to be using your professional knowledge, and you're going to assist them throughout the whole transaction so they feel safe. When you're showing this to them, you're also showing to them that you're committing to them, not just them to you. If you're into working with buyers, I strongly suggest you use this document, because it will protect you from the client going with another agent. Subconsciously, when they sign something, they know that they are on the hook with you. They will more likely be loyal to you. So it's a shame we have to do this, but that's the kind of business that we're in. And then here in paragraph 7, you'll see that the duties that they have to provide to you, which you can read, and they're very basic, and they just basically ask for general, truthful information, and basically their loyalty is what it's asking for. And then on page 2, you get a signature. Even though only page 2 requires a signature, I always suggest that you get page 1 either signed or initialed, because this is where it talks about money. So this is definitely something you want to get signed, because then later on they don't say you filled it in afterwards. So definitely take care of that, and you'll be safe with a buyer. This document here says that we recommend that they should always have a home inspection. So this is definitely something you should have in your file. This is a document you would need in case you're also representing the seller. If you're representing the seller too, and you're selling the buyer a home that your agency has, then you have to get them to sign a dual agency form. This is the lead-based paint. You shouldn't be using a blank one. You should always use the one that the seller already has, the seller's agent already has on file. So try to get that. If they don't have one, then have them fill this one out and send it over to the seller's agent and have them fill it out from their client. If you're preparing a commercial contract, we don't prepare a commercial contract as realtors. We should just prepare a letter of intent or this non-binding term sheet and use this, but in this case we're not going to. It's just a residential property. This is the non-exclusive buyer's agreement, which means that if you're going to work with a client non-exclusively and they're open to work with other agents, then you should use this, and the same terms apply here if you find them a property. Okay, so pretty simple. So for this transaction, we're going to use buyer's disclosure, we're going to use the CIS, we're going to use the contract, we're going to use the exclusive buyer's agreement, we're going to use the home inspection disclosure, and I believe that's the last thing we'll need. Okay, perfect. All right. So now what we're going to do, since we have all these documents, we're going to, the way I do it is I dump it into a merge. If you guys don't have it, it's free software. It's called PDF Merge. It's compatible with Google. You can actually have it as a extension. And what it does is it takes all your documents and creates it into one. So now I'm going to click here where it says merge. A few seconds later you'll have your one file. Okay, now you're going to save the PDF to your computer. We're going to call it the address of the property, 376 Maple. We'll click OK. I like to use this PDF writer called DocHub. You guys can even prepare these contracts on .loop, or you can prepare them on the zip forms. I personally like doing it this way. For me, I feel like it's quicker. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to create a new import document. I'm going to take my new file and dump it here. Once it's imported, I can start filling it out. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do before I request any signatures is I'm going to start writing the information of that we're going to need that's going to be pertinent to your situation. So rather than doing it here, it's going to take forever. I'm just going to go through the steps, and then we're going to do it off screen so you guys can not get bored with the process. So we'll start here. We're going to put in our buyer's information. If it's a husband and wife, we put both of them. We're going to put the brokerage information here, which is obviously ours, or you can put yours if you're watching from another company. And then you're going to put the municipalities in which you're going to be looking for properties for them. Now, if your client is open to different municipalities within a county, you can go and put in Union County, Essex County, whatever you guys have decided on previously. Here, does the buyer have a business relationship with another broker? You could either click yes or no. If you haven't signed an exclusive buyer's agreement, it should be no. Then we'll move on here where it says the declaration of business relationship. This should have your name here and then the name of the firm, which is Culture Estate. And then we're going to have to also explain if we're representing them only as a buyer's agent or if we're going to represent them as a buyer's agent and a disclosed agent if the opportunity arises. Cover your bases and always put down that you might act as a disclosed dual agency if your office is set up that way, because you never know if you might end up selling them a property from your own office. Here in paragraph 4 where it says term, try to make the term from the day that you first meet them and give yourself about, I would say, at least 6 months to a year that you'll put the contract into effect with your client, because you never know how long it's going to take them to find a house. And the longer it takes, the more time you have invested, the more money you lose if they don't work with you. Brokerage fee. This is up to you. You can put in here 2%, 3%. Normally you want to put the percentage that you would normally get in a transaction. If you're working with an investor, you can put a flat fee in here. It's really up to you. If you read in here, it also gives you an ability to extend it after the termination. This is also up to you. You can put 30, 60, 90 days afterwards. It's fine. And please read this whole paragraph so you can explain to them properly how the brokerage fee works, because they are credited the amount if it's paid by the seller as well. Read through the rest of this agreement and then have the signatures here on this page. Okay, so page 1 of the offer. If you're only representing the buyer, we're going to click only the buyer. And by doing this, you're letting them know that you don't have anyone else's interest in mind. And the first page also explains to you that this is not a contract, only an offer, and that they should use an attorney, even though it's not an attorney state where you need one in New Jersey. Here you're going to go back and have your buyer sign, and you're also going to sign as the selling broker, not the listing broker. And you'll also put in your name here. I'm doing this one with Harry, so I'm going to put Harry Page. Here we're going to put our client's information, whatever that may be. What's his name? Ryan?
Ryan.
Uh-huh.
Bonarenko.
Okay.
Bonderenko.
Okay.
And his wife is going on as well.
Wife?
Iman. E-M-A-N. And the same last name.
Okay. We'll get to the rest of the info later. Seller, if you look on your MLS sheet, sometimes it doesn't have the seller information or the owner information if you look here. So one simple trick, you just click on tax report, and tax report will give you the owner's name. So here we see that is looks like it's Rose. Copy that. And then we'll come back here. We have our seller's information. It's not pertinent for you to put the seller's address. If you want to go ahead and put it, you can. I'm not doing it today to save us some time. Then here what we're going to do is we're going to put the property address. So if we're working on 376 Maple, we're going to put 376 Maple Avenue in the tax map, municipal tax map of Rahway and county of Union. Lot and block is also very simple to find. You can look right on your MLS sheet and you'll find it here. Lot is 1, block is 102. Okay, and then we're going to put in our offer, whatever that offer may be. I'm not going to do that here for purpose of saving us some time. Then we're going to put in line number 2, we're going to put an initial deposit. You should always collect at least a $1,000 deposit, if not more, in order to show that your client has a significant interest in the property. Additional deposits should always be given after attorney review is over. This should be, a lot of times you should do at least $3,000 to $5,000, or sometimes if you really want to get your offer to get accepted, you may want to put the balance of what the deposit is going to be on the house anyway. So if your client's putting total $10,000 deposit, the first deposit you collected was 1, you can put a second deposit of 9 to really make your client stand out if it's a multiple offer situation. Here on mortgage amount, right, if you're confused about how much of a mortgage you're going to take out, talk to your lender. The person who's giving them the loan will give you the loan amount. If it's a $100,000 loan and they're putting down 5%, then the mortgage amount is going to be $95,000. And then here in the last line where it says balance of purchase price, you're going to put down the amount that they still have to put down the day of closing in order to complete the remainder of the down payment that they're going to give. So if they're giving a $5,000 deposit and they gave 1 in the beginning, 3 after attorney review, that's $4,000. They're still missing $1,000, so you would put $1,000 here. If they gave their whole deposit on the second deposit, then this would be 0 on the last line. Okay, guys, we'll move on. Here it outlines about the initial deposit, how much you're going to be giving initially. So very simple to understand. Listing broker is if it's going to the listing agency. Participating broker is if it's coming to us, which in this case it is, or if it's going to the buyer's attorney, title company, or someone else. And you have to outline when you're going to get it. So if we're preparing this contract today, we're going to say that we're going to get it today, because we should always be collecting a deposit the day that we get a signed offer. Additional deposits, when they're going to be given, you could put in here after attorney review. Right? That's really vague, but it's good that it's vague, because if you don't get it, if you don't get it the day after attorney review, at least it gives you a few more days in order to do that. And it says here where the escrow is going to be held. Initially, it'll be held with our company, Culture Estate. So we just go ahead and fill that in. And then it asks us about the principal loan amount, what type of financing it's going to be. Do you know if they're doing FHA or conventional?
I'm going to find out right now, because he kind of just confused me.
Okay, we'll keep it conventional for now, because you can do rehab financing either way. Okay. Then
if he was going to do a conventional loan, right?
Mm-hmm.
He would do a conventional 203K. Really wouldn't change anything except that pre-approval letter.
Yeah, that's the only thing that changes. Mm-hmm. Then here it asks for the balance of the. I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Here it's going to ask you when you're going to have a commitment on this loan by. Normally, what I like to do is I like to give my clients at least 30 days to get a commitment, if not more. But we just stick to 30 for now. February is a short month, so I'll give them the first week into March. So let's just say March 7th, 2017 will be when we have a commitment, and then it's going to ask us when are we expecting to close this transaction. So let's say we close on the last day of March. I'm not sure if the 31st is a weekday. I hope it is. If not, I'll go back and change it later.
Let me check.
Go ahead.
So pretty much a month after the commitment.
Not so much. 2 to 3 weeks.
It's a Friday.
All right, great. Works out perfectly. All right, if there's any items included or excluded in the sale, you'd want to put them here, right? We're just going to keep it blank for now. This is a short sale, so we're probably not going to get many things. This is paragraph 9 asks you what kind of property this is. It's going to ask you about the CO issues and CO repairs. Now, this gives you a hard limit. A hard limit on the CO repairs if your buyer is responsible for taking care of the issues. You can put down in here 500, 1,000, whatever you want to put. Normally I put about $1,000, because what this means is that if the repairs surpass $1,000, that the buyer can back out because it's too much money for them to fix the CO issues. Okay?
Is this for short fills or any
well, the buyer is only responsible for the CO
Correct.
in bank owned properties and short sales, unless it's like negotiated through the attorney review period. They might even do it. Estates might even have you do the CO as a buyer, but most of the time on regular transactions, the seller is responsible for it. All right. Here in this line, it's going to ask you how many families or how many units the home has. And in this case, it's a one-family home, so we'll leave it as such. Tenancies, if there's tenants there, we would want to find out about that information. But in this case, it's vacant, so we're going to put in non-applicable. Okay, lead-based paint, is it applicable? In this case it is, because the home was built before 1978, so we're going to have that there. Okay. Here we start talking about inspections. So in this event, if you read this paragraph here, it's gonna tell you that during a contract, there's going to be a time in which the seller and the buyer have time in order to well, accept an offer or proposal or counter offer an offer or proposal. So I always put in the 3 days, and if you don't put in the 3 days, if it's left blank, it says here if left blank 3 days. So that one's pretty simple. Don't leave it blank just because it says if left blank in 3 days, because it makes your contract look like you're not really filling it out completely. Point of entry, I try not to get involved with too much of this stuff because a lot of times we don't know this stuff, and we hope that the seller of the property knows it. This is stuff to do with contaminated properties and such, so I really don't like the liability of putting applicable or non-applicable if we don't know, so I kind of leave this blank. Cesspools, for those who don't know, are the way that septic systems were used a long time ago, and in the country especially, this may be applicable or not applicable, but if it's not in your area, then just leave it blank, let the attorneys handle it, or let the seller's agent fill that part out if you have any doubts. So then we'll move down to the inspection contingency. If you're dealing with a bank-owned home, you're allowed to do inspections, but they're just not going to fix anything. So we're going to give these people 14 days, just like it says in here in the contract. In the offer, if it's left blank. This allows your client 2 weeks in order to do inspections. We'll continue with the same 14 days down here because this covers more inspections. And if you have if you want to really understand this, please read it over as many times as it takes in order for you to get it down packed. Okay, this part here is going to ask you the name of your firm, which you'll have here, and the representative of your firm. In this case, it's Harry. And Harry's representing the buyer as a buyer's agent, and the information is supplied by Remax in action. And they are the seller's agent. The listing firm, I'm not going to bore you guys with this. You can actually figure this part out yourself. I don't think it's that difficult. You do need to put in the listing agent's license number and their office's license number, as well as yours. Okay. Now, we don't know a lot of times what the commission is going to be for the listing firm, so we'll leave that part blank, but we do have to put what the commission is going to be for ourselves. If we don't put it down, it opens up a situation where we can have a dispute about commission later. Yeah, it's only 2%. So you don't need my guidance to fill this part out, guys. It's pretty easy, so just make sure you get this filled out correctly, because a lot of agents don't like when it's not filled out completely, especially agents that deal with banks. It gets under their skin. Okay, disclosure that the buyer or the seller hold a real estate license. If your client or the seller holds a real estate license, this has to be filled out. In Harry's case, this buyer does not hold a real estate license, so we're going to put not applicable. Sorry, not applicable. So we're going to have that there. Okay, now here on this last page, I'm going to ask Harry a really important question that he probably hasn't even gotten the opportunity to ask his clients for yet. But if your client needs any additional terms or conditions, you would be putting that here. So for instance, Harry, does your client need a seller concession? Do they need money for closing costs?
I need to find out.
All right, you don't know. So if Harry's client needed money for closing costs, we would be putting that in here. And we would dictate it like this. We would say seller agrees to pay up to X, or we can put 10,000, or we can put 3%, whatever we want to put here. We can do one or the other, don't do both. So either do a fixed fee or do a percentage. We put that towards closing costs and prepaids. Okay, so this is how you would fill that out. Then obviously you have the next document, which is the most important document apart from your contract, which is the CIS. If you guys don't get a CIS filled out from your client, you can get a $10,000 fine from the real estate commission. So always make sure that you have this filled out. So our clients are going to sign here, and we're going to put in here the information of the agent, and we're going to put here obviously the information of the agency, which is already pre-filled, and we're going to put the date. So we'll put the date once we send it out to get signed. And this is the buyer's disclosure, which we covered earlier. So very simple stuff, guys. I hope you took a lot out of this. If you still have any questions or I missed something that you guys saw, please let me know, and we'll definitely get those questions answered for you. Thanks, guys, and have a great day. I wish you guys the best of luck.